All right, my name's Sam Galante, and
I'm Josh Keenley.
And I decided to do this presentation with my roommate because we know a lot about Call of Duty, and we're going to do it in a podcast style. So my plan here is we're going to talk about games listed for the Xbox 360, every game starting from the first one being Call of Duty 2. So Call of Duty 2 came out alongside the release of Xbox 360. This is one of the games this is the first game made by Infinity Ward, and this is when Activision decided to hire on Treyarch and decided to release COD 2, the big red one, which is a game made for the PS2 and the original Xbox, but it also came out at the same time as the original COD 2. So then moving on to COD 3, this was made exclusively, Call of Duty 3, which is exactly what it was called, was made exclusively for the consoles, and it was made by Treyarch. And it was the third Call of Duty game in a row to be made throughout like the World War II fighting era. So it had a lot of styles like that, the guns like that. That was one of the things that a lot of people argued about was like they didn't have sights or anything in World War II, which is like a reoccurring thing that they talk about today. Like in Vanguard, that was a big controversy, was like not having sights in World War II games. But these were pretty historically accurate. But then it was the first game to come with the grenade throwback button. So if an enemy threw a grenade at you, you could pick one up and throw it. It was a really long animation, so not a lot of people used it though, unfortunately. And this was the first game to come with scripted campaign parts. Like if you were walking through a building and like a Nazi soldier jumped on you, you'd have to press like RT, LT, RT, LT.
Like a quick time event. Almost.
Yeah, like when you get attacked by a dog in like Modern Warfare 2 and like, you break its neck.
Right.
So it was the first time they had ever added something like that, where it was more of like a button jamming sequence to keep you alive.
Yeah. It breaks up like the slow parts of the game. I would say.
Yeah, especially it adds like a jump scare factor, and then they also use motion capture software for that. So it was really really big innovations at the time.
Definitely makes it way more realistic, that's for sure, compared to anything else that was being like produced at the time.
Yeah. So at that time, Infinity Ward was not making a Call of Duty, so they were taking a break off. So what they did is they rebuilt their entire game engine, and they were like, all right, this is what we want to do. And ever since COD 2, was such a big hit, Infinity Ward got the green light, and they're like, all right, we want to do what we're going to do. And one of the cool things that they did for COD 4, Modern Warfare, and then COD 2 is they actually went out and got instruction, learned everything about these. They would interview Marines. They went to live fire bases where they did actual testing and stuff like that. Okay. So in some of the tank scenes where the M1 Abrams is covered in sand, that's straight. They took a video of that and then just straight copied it into the game.
Yeah, not only that, it's as far as going back to their older games, it's not like they could have gone out and done that and interviewed a bunch of World War II veterans and stuff or gotten realistic footage there. So that's kind of an interesting way for them to break out of the World War II genre, I guess, but also add a new aspect of realism into the game, because they can just go out there and actually see modern warfare, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that was when they really threw in the motion capture software. So they would throw this on Marines and then have them do stacks on the door, or when you do it, added in the breaching sequences when you could put the plastic charge on the wall in the campaign, and then you blow it open and the whole thing would go slow-mo, and you would shoot everybody individually, and it went in slow-mo, and then it gave you 15 seconds of slow-mo, you kill everybody, and then everybody just drops.
Yeah.
Because it's it gives you that rush or adrenaline. It's trying to show and embrace in those campaigns.
More of a realistic simulation, and plus with all the motion cap going into I guess the non-playable characters around you that you're out here to attack in that scenario, that just another pretty big advancement that sounds pretty neat about Modern Warfare compared to some of the older games. Yeah.
Also, this was the first Call of Duty that they actually dedicated a standalone department, because Infinity Ward, after the success of Call of Duty 2, hired on 100 people, because Infinity Ward was really small. So they hired on 100 people, and for the first year of development, while the game was out, while Call of Duty 2 was out for the technology advancements for Modern Warfare. Mm-hmm. All they did was upgrade the game engine.
Oh wow!
So then Treyarch released another game, and then they had another year until they had to release their copy.
Right.
So they went through and they made all of this game, right?
Okay.
And for like 3 months they made like the whole game.
Okay.
And then they got done with it. They got done with the campaign and they hated it.
Oh.
So because they had done so much research and so much talk to Marines and like trying to get the more modern feel, they ended up making like a really, everything was small and close, like fighting quarters, like fighting like almost in the Middle East when you have to clear buildings, and like all of the missions ended up being like almost like Spec Ops is what we would think, where like it was really tight corners. It was just like 4 guys. Breach a house, kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Mission's over.
Okay.
So they like scrapped most of that. Yeah. So some of those like remains actually became the laters of what Spec Ops is when it was introduced in Modern Warfare 2, and then they had it in Modern Warfare 3.
And I can see what you're saying there, that a lot of those missions have to do with, a couple players are going to go in and like clear out this big section or a big wave of enemies. It always seemed to be like that, or else you have to go in and fight in this very condensed area. It was either one or the other for the Spec Ops, I guess. There wasn't a lot of variety there. I could see why you wouldn't want that for a campaign.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so they like what they did was they added like almost like not D-Day style, but like almost like, advancing troops, kind of rushing forward, but they set that in more of like the urban Middle East and other places in the world, because that game jumps around between like the SAS and the Americans. So when you're the Americans, you kind of it's kind of everything's a little bit louder and bigger, that like general stereotype. And then you go to the British, and a lot of their missions are
like
almost more stealth based,
sure.
kind of, because the first mission, you start off in that game, you're like sneaking around a boat, and you find a nuclear bomb on this boat, and then the rest of the game for the SAS, you have to figure out where it came from, while the Americans are tracing like the other side.
Right. Okay.
Like they're looking into something else, and the British is like back tracing the nuke. So they're kind of going in different directions.
So,
and
the player gets to experience like both sides of that investigation, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like,
and then halfway through that game, that's when the invasion of America starts.
Okay.
By the Russians.
Okay, so that's like another.
Oh wait, no, that's the next game. No, I lied. Okay.
So in the next game, though.
Yeah, in the next game, that's when it introduces that like whole thing, and that's why it's split kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so one from Modern Warfare, and then after that, Treyarch went out and stuck with the mindset of making World War II games, but they brought on that engine that Infinity Ward had spent all that time making, and they adopted it because when you use the same engine, you can almost like tell. Mm-hmm. There's something we talked about in class. You can almost a lot of games you can tell, like Dark Souls games. When the Dark Souls games load in, if I can tell it's a Dark Souls game, or like when a Call of Duty game loads in, I can tell it's those games because most of the time they run on the same engine, over and over.
Sure. That makes sense. And you
like
probably
the
want
Uncharted
some sort
games.
you probably want some sort of consistency within a franchise, so it's like it's their style. You recognize that, and that's why you keep coming back for more.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things that they adopted with this engine was they really added the effect of like almost movie style cinematics into it.
More cutscenes, I'm assuming. In
kind
the campaigns.
Of, but like sometimes you're like laying on the ground, you can only move your head, and you like watch an event unfold, kind of.
Yeah.
So we talked about this the other day. You haven't seen Enemy at the Gates.
I haven't.
But at Enemy at the Gates, they're in this circle. It's an old fountain. They're in this circle, and they're like piling bodies there.
Okay.
And some of the guys were like alive. They were either piling bodies there, or like that was a position that they held.
Okay.
That the Russians were holding. The Germans came in and killed everybody.
Okay.
But there's a scene where the guys walk over and they just shoot into a pile of dead bodies to like make sure they're dead.
And they do that sort of thing in the game as well?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same scene. It is like it is cut and copied. Yeah, a lot of Call of Duty games will take like. They'll take the big movies of that time, or like older movies, and do that
stuff about like these wars they're dealing with. Okay.
Yeah, so like there's a bunch of callbacks to Enemy at the Gates, and then there's a bunch of callbacks to like Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
You know, like some of the same scenes, like some of the ways they hand you the guns. Like there's like a scene where he hands you a gun through the helicopter.
Yeah, okay.
And then just dies, and he immediately gets shot. Well, that's a scene
Right.
straight out of Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
So yeah,
That's interesting.
another really cool part about that was now it's World War II. So this is one of the darkest games in the series. I mean, on the Western Front, that game opens up with same thing where you're like tied down, you can't see you can't do anything, you just watch, and you watch a Japanese soldier put like his cigar through like one of your teammates' eyes, and then you get saved. But then, you know how I said it switches before?
Yeah.
Well, in this one, you switch to the Eastern Front with the Russians, and this is when you get reintroduced to like Reznov and all these
So you're getting
characters
back to some
from
of
the
these old
past.
characters.
Well,
Yeah.
those come back in this game.
Okay.
So like, it's the scene from Enemy at the Gates.
Okay.
That's the scene on the west side, on the Western Front. I mean the Eastern Front with like Russia versus Germany, and then the Western Front was the Japanese and the Americans.
Yeah,
that like more fighting.
So it's definitely pretty history based and movie based. Kind of a nice combination there. Okay.
Yeah, and like in that game, you have the decision to like there's a bunch of Nazi soldiers that are like walking up these stairs, and they're just like, all of your friends are holding the Molotov cocktails, and they're like, all right, make the decision. Do you want them to live or you want to kill them?
Oh, geez.
And like that's the first time in a game that you can make like the moral decision in one of these Call of Duty games.
You can change how the game goes, I'm assuming, at that point.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It wasn't as far as they like went when they really actually went into changing the campaigns. With like, you know, if you killed a certain character, it completely changed the way the campaign goes.
Okay.
It wasn't that much. It was just like moral decisions.
Sure.
And like that game almost made you like think about the way that you actually
would handle some
like some of the things that like happen, and like you know they really did do a lot of research for this game, but they were able to like bring the World War II like kind of horrors, and like and some of the Russians, you're like walking across a balcony and they have a group of like captured Germans and they just gun them down. So it's a lot of stuff that like just like makes you think about like how bad this actually got. It brings, instead of like, you know, the battles that we've kind of almost fantasized with, you know, like Saving Private Ryan and like, you know, other movies like that, we've almost like romanticized like D-Day, where this game didn't really have that. It was like the dark, gloomy stuff.
Bad. Okay, that's interesting. So like, to that, would you say like that has something, does that have something to say about like violence as far as a war goes, or is it also at the same time doing kind of problematic in the sense that it's like, okay, we're exposing like children to like these horrors that are like very adult in nature, very like a situation like that's kind of rare, like war, like, you know, not many people can relate to seeing somebody get tortured or making the decision whether or not you're going to kill a group of like enemy soldiers. So like when you see that as like a younger person, what would you think, like how would you react to that, I guess, because as somebody who's played like as a younger person, not just now?
Well, I actually wasn't allowed to play. Like, I wasn't allowed to own or play Call of Duty games until I was like 16 years old. But of course,
I was in like the same
you end up playing at friends' houses and stuff like that. You kind of get the total gist. A lot of my knowledge of these games has come back from like replaying them as an adult. You know, it's not that much different than a movie. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't go watch rated R movies, so I didn't play rated M games. Like, there's almost like a level where like you have to understand, like, if you take your kid out and you buy GTA for him and it's a male, like, he's gonna end up at the strip club. Like, that's just kind of the nature of this game, where like the nature of Call of Duty is guns and violence and the glorification of, you know, like killing people, and like, war stories and all this stuff, and being able to play through this. But I don't think my reaction would have really changed as a child.
So you would say it wouldn't make it more violent necessarily?
No, I was never more violent because I, you know, played Call of Duty.
I would have to agree, and I was kind of in the same situation. Like, I wasn't really allowed to play those games, but when I did, it was like through friends. But when I was at a friend's house, you're not going to play the campaign, which is why I kind of tend to cling to like the multiplayer games in these, which aren't usually as personal or as like horrifying or story driven like that. Which I guess you could say is a benefit, but at the same time, like, they have really cool stories to tell or very interesting things. And in a lot of cases, it's pretty historically accurate. So I would say, for me personally, I don't see it as like, I don't see it really as educational necessarily, but I also don't see it as like making me want to like have violent tendencies, or like it doesn't make me feel like, oh, it's okay to like torture people. Like I would never, because I feel like same with movies, TV, or like any sort of video games. I think a lot of people are intelligent enough to make a decision like, oh, okay, I can separate the fiction from like the real life here, or I can like say, okay, in my day to day, I'm not faced with these decisions. I would never like resort to such violence. So I don't know. I just think as far as like violence in video games goes, and even though there is a lot of violence in like these Call of Duty games, I feel like even for like most children, like you could probably be intelligent enough or like conscious enough to know like this is not a real thing you're seeing. This is just a whole story that in a way you're participating in, but you're not, you're not killing anybody or hurting anybody by doing that. So I feel like we all can tell that separation is there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I totally get that.
Right.
Especially with most people are gonna be able to tell that. That line between fantasy and fiction, like,
yeah.
I mean, that's why movies are popular. That's why TV shows are popular. People
not
want to live that experience.
Yeah.
Like like you said, not everybody's life is that exciting. And sometimes you just want to sit down and watch some TV or watch a movie that makes you like feel like you're in the action.
Right.
Well, for us, we just want to play in the action. I mean,
unwind and relax while you do it. You can relax while
while
seeing all these like violent things unfold, or even like controlling that story a bit. And I guess it just kind of leads to controversies quite often, really, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, which funny enough, moving on to the next game and the video game history here for Call of Duty, it's one last thing. World at War was the introduction of Nazi zombies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
and, like that was like a pretty well received edition. Like
yeah.
Who didn't like that?
The first map came in and it was like Nazi. No.
I don't remember the title.
I'm awful with all
that. Was
names.
in like the trenches and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's where they like dug up that thing.
Yeah, you're pretty much in the trenches right there, but none of what you're talking about is actually in that because I hadn't really planned for it. It was kind of like we're gonna throw this in the game and see how people like it, and then it had a really good feedback, and people started like trying to see how they can get. So that's where like the wall buys and the mystery box first made their appearance, and like. They made a couple extra maps. You had to buy those in like map packs to get those extra maps for World at War. But they didn't really have a story to them. They hadn't really built that like Nazi zombies franchise yet.
Compared to now.
Yeah, compared to now, there's just nothing.
I can't follow the story of like the new zombies.
Oh, it's it's insane. Yeah, the new ones are crazy, but
it's come a long way.
That leads into what we were talking about is controversies with violence and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Modern Warfare 2 released, and I don't know if you remember playing it, but every time it was like, do you want to witness graphic content? Yeah, as a child, like you're not allowed, you're not supposed to take it, so you're like, of course, like let me watch this, and you play the mission No Russian.
Oh man.
And it's just a mass shooting. Like there's nothing else to explain it.
It's just unarmed civilians.
It is just unarmed civilians in an airport.
It's a war crime.
Mass shooting.
Yeah, it's like a framed war crime.
Yeah, it's a completely framed war crime of an American spy who's trying to capture Makarov, the main villain from both of these games, from Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. He's the common villain. And he just shoots you at the end of the mission. You make it all the way through the mission. You're fighting everybody, and then he shoots you with a pistol in the chest.
He knew you were the spy,
and he knows you're a spy. And then he just says, "That's why." And then
That's why they couldn't say. That's why they couldn't speak Russian.
Yeah,
it's
why.
like be an American intelligence thing. I was gonna say, in all fairness, like the game does punish you after you partake in that. Like you shoot all these civilians, and then he just shoots you too. Like sure, they're kind of getting away with it at the time, but I kind of think as long as we're talking about violence, it's like. Well, if you're gonna go around into like in a video game scenario,
obviously,
you might get shot by these people that are getting you tangled up in such a terrible situation. So,
yeah, exactly. Like it's kind of instant karma for the and we're watching it as if it's our own eyes.
I mean, first time I played that, definitely a surprise. Like I wasn't like I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, yeah, this just happened. And it's like, oh, okay, they caught me.
Yeah.
I'm the one getting fooled. And then it
Yeah.
really sets up the game nicely. It's like, okay, we screwed up with that operation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then you move through, and then that's like the start of the Russian invasion into. That's what causes it.
Yeah.
And then that's where we get that, like, you know, classic line where it's like, oh, do you see any bogeys overhead? And then he's like, I have fighters all over I-90.
Yeah.
Where'd they come from? And it's just the Russians invading, like, Washington, D.C.
Oh.
And another thing is that every time Infinity War makes a new game, they update their engine graphics.
Yeah, so it's
getting,
it looks better and better.
Yeah, so it looked better, it ran better, and then it gave you the introduction. Oh, also in World at War, it gave the introduction of like enhanced facial recognition. Not recognition. Like mapping.
Okay.
So like you could like take a video of someone's face talking,
sure.
and then you could implement it into the game so that it made like close-up conversations like one-on-one.
Yeah.
More like it gave them emotion. They like could
yeah.
move their face and stuff like that.
Because we've all played the games where it's like
their stone face just talking to you.
Just, like the mouth kind of moves. It's kind of like a puppet.
Yeah,
it's
not
just,
really.
And then it comes a long way with like the better and better motion capture.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get into some of these games and it's like playing, you know, it's like watching a movie.
It is, yeah.
You know, like the cutscenes are
like
already movie quality,
graphics,
and then you walk in game and you're standing there and it's like.
And you get to walk around that world too. It's pretty cool. You can't do that in a movie. So.
Exactly. That is also a really good part. Yeah, okay. Sorry. So, one of the big features about Modern Warfare 2 that really like led to content creation for Call of Duty was the kill cam.
Oh, okay.
And like I was reading an article the other day on IGN, and it's just like they're talking about how the vanity skins came with like bragging rights. I mean, obviously, and then like it was like who could get the coolest kill cam. So like that was like almost the first game to like kind of push that like toxic, you know, like COD lobbies. Like that was, you know, that was the game that like we really bred interesting people out of, like Modern Warfare 2 COD lobbies, because it really just brewed aggressive, hostile.
Yeah,
just
people got into it, but you know, at least they weren't being violent like in real life. I guess.
Yeah,
so
you know,
and
it's just like
anyways,
those things. I mean, that was what we grew up on. That was insane.
Yeah, I mean, talk about growing up with like thick skin.
Yeah, seriously.
Really prepares you to like have not so nice interactions with people, and like eventually you learn you can't just scream back at them.
Yeah,
that's
like,
almost a plus, I would have to say. Like
yeah.
After enough time of like realizing you can only just you shouldn't answer hostility with more hostility.
Yeah,
isn't that kind of funny? Like there's so many people out there that argue that video games, especially like Call of Duty type video games, they can really make kids violent or blah blah blah. Like sure, some people get aggressive in those chats, but like I think a great takeaway as you mature and leave that kind of thing behind you, you're like, you know, I think, or if you see that ultra chill person in the lobby, that's just like, okay, buddy, like,
yeah,
you really
that everybody gets along with, and
you really got me there, and then it
Yeah.
just makes the guy that's resorting to like the childish behavior look stupid, and it's like, okay, that's a part of growing up, which is kind of funny to see that out of such a controversial space. Immediately,
especially. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Modern Warfare 2 sold 5 million copies in the first 5 days.
Those are
but like the first 24 hours, it was like 7 million or something. But they take like most of like, you know, the data is taken on the first 5 days.
Yeah, that's like
it's like the first business week or whatever.
Sure,
yes.
Of sales of the game.
And yeah, it sold 9 million copies in the first 5 days. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So then,
that's a lot of money,
and then obviously the next game to come out is the wonderful Black Ops 1.
Oh yes.
Which, you know, gave us way better maps for zombies, the start of a real story for zombies, Easter eggs in zombies, pack-a-punch in zombies, the use of real power in zombies, where like you had to turn the power on to get the, you know, the perks. They added all these new perks. You know, that was the real time that like zombies became something that you could really like almost grind. and like you had good runs. Like you're like, oh, I got this gun.
The replayability is really great because like it's going to be different every time you play, which is why you never get bored playing like seeing how many rounds you can get to because every time it's something different's going to happen. And, you know, and then the luck-based thing with the mystery box or things like that. Like, it's like, okay, some games start out harder than others, and some games, okay, they start out pretty good and may stay going that way, and sometimes not so much.
Or like you get a lucky couple max ammos in like a zombies round, and then all of a sudden it changes the whole course of the game.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then, you know, so I love that campaign because the first mission is the Bay and Pigs invasion, where like you're trying to go kill, I believe it's Fidel Castro.
Probably.
Yeah, more than likely not. It's Fidel Castro,
he's in one of the cutscenes later too. One of the zombies cutscenes, right? He's with 5, the map 5.
Yeah, he's with the map 5. Yeah, because it's JFK, Fidel, and then somebody else. No, you're actually not Nixon's going to try to kill him. You're going to kill Menendez.
Okay.
Yeah, Menendez is like now the new bad guy.
Okay.
Yeah, because he comes back in Black Ops 2. Yeah, not Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro is in that game though, like you said, in the map 5.
Yeah.
With like all of the different world leaders at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like JFK.
Nixon was there.
Nixon was there. He was there.
Yeah.
And then I believe it's the Russian dictator with the birthmark on his head.
Yeah, something like that.
What's that? Krishnikov?
No.
Is that before?
I forgot his name.
I forget his name too, but he's in there, and that's
Gorbachev?
a great cut. Yeah, Gorbachev. I think. Yeah, it is Gorbachev.
Or am I thinking of too late in history? Yeah, whatever.
But I just remember he was the one on there.
Yeah, very.
But it's like one of the first Call of Duty games in a while that followed like a more single person, and it's Alex Mason, where we get all the great memes of what do the numbers mean, Mason, and like you're locked in the chair, and like you flash in and out of these missions where it's just like you're not playing the mission, you're replaying Alex's memories.
Okay, sure.
And like that's the whole story. So like you have the Bay of Pigs invasion, that's one of his missions. You have the Tet Offensive, that's one of his missions. And then you have like stuff in Hong Kong and like the post-Soviet after World War II, like all of the fallback with all of that.
Okay.
It's the Cold War era, so it's all of the stuff with the Soviet Union and Hong Kong and spread of communism and all of this stuff. You do missions in those cities, and this brings back Reznov again.
Okay, yeah, of course, fan favorite.
Yeah, a fan favorite, of course. So it brings that. There's another mission in there where you're in Laos and you're captured and you're forced to play Russian roulette. So you're playing Russian roulette, and then he like looks at the gun and then like rotates it and gives you a nod. So you know that there's a bullet gonna be fired. So instead of shooting it yourself, you shoot like one of the captors, take his gun, and then it's a whole like you got to do like an escape scene down the river, and then that's when you rescue Woods.
Okay.
The older guy from some of the other campaigns. So you rescue him, and then you guys come back home, and then it like flashes forward to like to another memory, but it goes back into like
and that's the mission's
creepy room where you're just like tied down. So that campaign had like a really sinister vibe to it.
Yeah, for sure, because you know what's gonna happen at the end of all these like memories.
Yeah. So that sold 11 million copies in 5 days.
Yeah, for sure. No wonder.
I think the first day, the first 24-hour sales reached about 9 million.
That is whack. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, there's not many games that have passed it since. So, except for like GTA 5.
But like just for these 5 million, like for these 5 days, it's just an absurd amount.
Right.
After falling out with, Infinity Ward, to make Modern Warfare 3, because they made Modern Warfare 2, they fired the founder and the co-founder of Infinity Ward.
I didn't know that. Wow.
And then Infinity Ward was like, no, we're not working for you. Like, you're not going to take over our company, so they just backed out. So then Activision had to hire in Sledgehammer Games.
Oh, that's when they started. So they did that for Modern Warfare 3?
Yeah, and then that's when they switched over and started using the Raven engine.
Okay.
Because Treyarch had been... Treyarch actually continued to use the Infinity Ward engine, but they like pretty much rebuilt it. And like Sledgehammer Games used Raven, but then like kind of rebuilt some of it.
Huh.
It was weird. They did a lot of stuff for that game, and like, you know, Modern Warfare 3, it's got a great story. A lot of it is based around like saving the president's daughter.
Okay.
So there's like, she gets captured, you gotta find her, you know, the plane gets shot down, you gotta find her again. And that's like a stealth mission, so like, you know,
so
it integrates like the slow motion effects of like when I was talking about breaching the walls, but like the plane just takes a nosedive, and when a 747 drops 5,000 feet, it goes weightless.
Yeah.
The back end goes weightless, so you're like floating through the air, just like shooting all these terrorists on this plane to try to get back to the daughter. Okay. And then another cool aspect about that game is that in the Spec Ops mode, you can play as the terrorists that take the plane. So you have to see how quickly you can take the plane.
That's really neat.
So you get to play the other side of that story. So I definitely think that's one of the
that was something pretty
really cool games.
Pretty neat about the Spec Ops, because I didn't make it to that point in Spec Ops yet, but there I've noticed that there are some missions where you get to like reverse the roles from stuff that was in the campaign, which is pretty neat. It's like it definitely adds even more like replayability, or like, plus you can like multiplayer that stuff with your friends, which is really neat. Yeah, that's like one of the cool things there, because like when you're campaigning, like you can't just, you know, say, hey, you want to split screen, or you want to like play over Xbox Live, like that's just like your story, you're kind of going through it. But like with Spec Ops, they like take some of the really cool story, the big action aspects for sure, and like the really cinematic cool things about that part of the game. It's not just a multiplayer like, oh, team deathmatch. It's, you know, there's like some story or like real incentive, and like you do have to stealth some stuff, or you do have to, sometimes there really is like an all out like battle going on. So it's definitely a neat way to play the game with other people.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Or like, you know, one of my favorites is you like have a 50 cal and somebody's on the ground defusing IEDs, and you have a Predator missile and a 50 caliber sniper rifle, and you're in a skyscraper.
Oh,
and it's called like Little Brothers or something. So like there's one guy on the ground and you're playing Spec Ops, so the other split screen is running on the ground defusing IEDs while you're
on
shooting.
The roof, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I believe I played that.
No, not on the roof. It's like in an alley, and then the sniper is up top on a roof. And then there's like a helicopter that comes in.
Yeah,
you gotta shoot down.
Okay,
and then like a tank comes in. You gotta hit it with the Preds.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really fun one.
So that's a really fun one.
That's fun to like play it and like try to get the opposite role the next time, and you and your buddy can play the same thing again and like have a different experience.
Yeah, totally different experience. You know, and like
awesome.
Sometimes it would go better.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes I was the better sniper.
Yeah.
I was like better I was better at that than doing the IEDs, and my buddy was better at the IEDs. But
so like now you got your system.
Yeah, you got your system,
so
and we
3 stars.
We beat him on veteran. Yeah. We went back and beat a lot of them on veteran, and like that's when it takes, you know, a little bit more communication. And, you know, actual skill for that game. Sure. But I do miss some of those aspects that were kind of like skill based.
Yeah.
Over just like the new meta, which is like, you have to understand what gun has the best time to kill, or else you can't. I don't know. Your experience isn't as great.
Okay.
But I think that's probably where we're gonna end it.
Okay. Sounds good.